Good to have you. Doug, when I contacted you about being on the show to discuss the first quarter GDP report, I thought we'd be talking about a slowdown in the numbers. I didn't think we'd be talking about an actual contraction. But when the Commerce Department reported last week, that's what they said, a first quarter contraction of 1.4% on an annualized basis. At the same time, inflation is running hot at 8%. So what to make of this? Is it time to start freaking out?
I was afraid that people would freak out. I, like most people, had expected a low number because we had a really big number in the fourth quarter, in large part because of a huge contribution by an inventory run-up. And one expected that to reverse itself. And so I thought we'd get a 1.1 or a 1, but I thought we'd have a positive sign. So when you look inside the report, did I have that instinct right? Yeah, we saw some big inventory declines, and they subtracted nearly a percentage point from GDP. But the bigger impact was net exports, which showed a real sharp down pull, about 3 percentage points. So I think the right way to think about this report is to say, okay, what am I worried about? In the U.S., we're worried about inflation and an overheated economy. What households and businesses look like in this report? Well, final sales to domestic purchasers up 2.6%. That's not a downturn. That's an economy that's still growing. Inflation that's 8%. And so the problems we had on Wednesday before the report are the same problems we had on Thursday after the report. And I don't think we should change course in any way because of it. I mean, the Fed should move down its path of tightening, and fiscal policy does not need to stimulate the economy or do anything else that might exacerbate inflation.
So let's pop up the hood on the GDP report a second. I'd like to talk a little bit more about the role of imports. One of the things that you noted is one of the biggest subtractions to growth in this latest report was net exports, the difference between what we've exported and what we imported. And we didn't export a lot and we imported a lot. And so this concept is growing that imports subtract from GDP and are thus bad for the economy. Can you unpack that a little bit? Is that a correct assessment?
It's not a correct economic assessment. It's a correct accounting assessment. When you add up the components of GDP, you add up consumption, investment, government spending, and exports, and subtract off imports. So if you're an accountant, imports subtract from GDP. But the reality is a lot of our imports are intermediate goods, and we can take those intermediate goods and sell them to the American public only because firms add value to them. And so you need to add value to those imports, so they are an important contribution to total value added. And if we didn't have them, we couldn't add the value and have the sales. We wouldn't have the C or the I or the G that we otherwise would have had. So they're helping us produce GDP. They're an important component of it. And people should not be confused by the accounting. The economics of bringing into the country those resources you need to produce goods and services of value and sell them to people, largely domestically, but also they might turn right around and sell the final good as an export. That's where we get our income. And that's a valuable process.
So I think about it in terms of, okay, I drive a 10-year-old Honda Pilot around town. It's a foreign-made automobile, so it was an import, but that's the automobile that gets me to work. It's the automobile that gets me to the grocery store where I earn money, I spend money, etc. So that's a good thing, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's a component of producing the best value for our economy, and for you, that's the way you've organized your life, and that's what you value, those purchases. The Honda's an